Behind the whimsical flying machine that captivated millions lies a treasure trove of bizarre secrets. From a carriage crash that nearly killed a ballet legend to an F1 champion hitting shocking speeds in the prop, and even Michael Jackson's failed bid to own it. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Chitty Chitty Bang Bang's magical car. Fact 1. 6 different cars outdoors were built for one movie. When you watch Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, you're actually seeing 6 completely different cars pretending to be the same magical vehicle. The filmmakers didn't just build one car and hope for the best. They constructed 6 separate versions of Chitty for the 1968 film, with each one designed to handle specific scenes and stunts that the others couldn't perform. There was a fully functional road-going car that could actually drive and was registered with the license plate Gen 11, making it completely street legal in the United Kingdom. Then they built a flying car specifically for the aerial sequences, which had wings and was lighter than the others, so it could be suspended and filmed from above. The water car was constructed with aluminum fittings instead of brass because they needed something that wouldn't corrode when Chitty transformed into a boat during the beach scenes. There was also a trailer car that had no engine at all and was simply towed behind another vehicle so the actors could perform their close-up shots and musical numbers without worrying about actually driving. The filmmakers even created a hidden driver car that had a second steering wheel concealed inside, which gave the illusion that Chitty was driving herself during certain magical moments. And finally, there was the junker model that the children discover at the beginning of the film, which was just a beaten-up shell meant to look like scrap metal. Only the main road-going version with the GN11 registration was truly functional as a real car, powered by a 3.0-liter Ford Essex V6 engine with an automatic transmission, and it's the one that's changed hands over the decades and eventually ended up being purchased by famous film directors. Fact 2. The father was younger than his son. One of the strangest casting choices in Chitty Chitty. Bang Bang involves a father who was actually younger than his own son, at least in real life. Actor Lionel Jeffries played Grandpa Potts, the eccentric elderly father of the main character, Caractacus Potts, who was portrayed by Dick Van Dyke. But here's the twist. Jeffries was born on June 10, 1926. While Van Dyke was born on December 13, 1925, making Van Dyke a full 6 months older than the man playing his father on screen. This bizarre age reversal went completely unnoticed by audiences because Jeffries had experienced premature hair loss at the young age of 19, which he blamed on the humidity during his military service in Burma during World War II. His early baldness became an unexpected advantage throughout his acting career, allowing him to convincingly portray characters who were much older than his actual age. And he built an entire career out of playing elderly gentlemen, grandfathers, and authority figures while still being relatively young himself. The makeup and costume departments enhanced this natural advantage by giving Jeffries wild white hair, a scraggly beard, and rumpled clothing that made him look like a proper old inventor, and his energetic physical comedy performance as the eccentric Grandpa Potts convinced everyone that he was indeed the elder statesman of the family. Meanwhile, Van Dyke remained youthful-looking, with his full head of dark hair and smooth face, which made the illusion even more believable. This wasn't an isolated incident for Jeffries either. He continued playing older characters throughout the 1960s and 70s, frequently appearing as fathers, grandfathers, and elderly professionals in British films and television shows, all while being younger than many of the actors portraying his children or colleagues. Fact 3. Peter Jackson drives Hobbit cast around in it. The original hero car from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang ended up in the hands of one of Hollywood's most successful directors, and he's been having an absolute blast with it ever since. Peter Jackson, the mastermind behind the Lord of the Rings trilogy, purchased the fully functional street-legal Chitty at auction in May of 2011 for $805,000, which was less than the expected price range of $1 to $2 million, but still a significant investment for a piece of film history. The car had been owned for decades by Pierre Picton, who toured it around Britain for charity events, and when it finally went up for auction in California, Jackson swooped in to bring it home to New Zealand. What makes this story even better is how Jackson actually uses the car instead of just keeping it locked away in a private collection somewhere. People working near the Weta workshop in Wellington, New Zealand, the special effects company that created the incredible creatures and props for Jackson's films, reported seeing the director cruising around his property in Chitty with cast members from the Hobbit movies riding along as passengers. Jackson would blast the iconic Chitty Chitty Bang Bang theme song through a sound system installed in the car, creating this surreal moment where hobbits and dwarves from Middle-earth were being driven around in a magical flying car from a completely different fantasy universe. The car now lives in New Zealand, where it's registered under the license plate Gen 1I, spelled GEN1I, because the original Gen 11 plate was already taken by another vehicle in New Zealand, so Jackson had to get creative with the registration to keep the spirit of the original name alive. Fact 4. Childcatcher removed his teeth for terror. The Childcatcher remains one of the most terrifying villains in children's film history, and part of what made him so unnervingly creepy was a deliberate physical choice by the actor that went far beyond just costume and makeup. Robert Helpman, the renowned ballet dancer who portrayed this nightmarish character, actually removed his top set of false teeth before filming his scenes to create the gaunt, sunken, and pinched facial features that made the Childcatcher look so skeletal and menacing. This wasn't just about appearance either. Taking out his dentures fundamentally changed the way Helpman could speak, producing that distinctive creepy hissing sound whenever the character talked, which added an extra layer of unsettling quality to lines like, "I can smell children," and made every word feel more sinister and threatening. The combination of the hollowed cheeks, the altered speech patterns, and Helpman's naturally dramatic movements from his ballet background created a villain so effective that he's been voted one of the scariest characters in children's entertainment, and has appeared on multiple lists ranking the most frightening movie villains of all time. What makes this even more interesting is that behind the scenes, Helpman was reportedly the complete opposite of his terrifying character. The child actors who worked with him, including Heather Ripley, who played Jemima, said he was incredibly kind, sweet, and charming between takes, constantly making the kids laugh and protecting them from the director's occasional temper. Helpman loved children in real life and would joke around with the young cast members to help them feel comfortable, which made it difficult for them to pretend to be afraid of him during actual filming, since they knew he was such a gentle person off camera. Fact 5. F1 champion hit 120 mph in the prop. The Chitty Chitty Bang Bang car proved it had some serious speed capabilities when a Formula One racing legend got behind the wheel and pushed it to its absolute limits. Graham Hill, one of the most celebrated drivers in motorsport history and a two-time Formula One world champion, drove one of the Chitty cars during an exhibition at Crystal Palace and reportedly managed to reach 120 miles per hour, which is an absolutely astonishing speed for what was essentially a movie prop that had been designed more for looks than performance. This incredible feat stands in stark contrast to how the film's lead actor felt about driving the same vehicle during production. Dick Van Dyke famously complained that steering Chitty was like turning a battleship because the car was so heavy and unwieldy, with an extremely wide turning radius that made it difficult to maneuver during the driving scenes filmed for the movie. Van Dyke also struggled with the manual gearbox that was originally installed in the car, and he apparently couldn't cope with operating a stick shift while also hitting his marks and performing his lines, so the production team had to switch out the transmission for an automatic gearbox to make filming possible. The contrast between Graham Hill's experience and Dick Van Dyke's experience perfectly illustrates the difference between a professional racing driver who's spent years mastering vehicle control at high speeds and an actor who's trying to drive while simultaneously remembering choreography, dialogue, and camera positions. Hill's ability to coax that kind of performance out of a car that wasn't built for racing shows just how skilled he was as a driver, while Van Dyke's honest assessment of the car's handling difficulties gives us a realistic picture of what it was actually like to operate this unusual vehicle. Fact 6. Phil Collins was edited out with a bandage. long before he became one of the most successful musicians in the world. As the drummer and lead singer of Genesis, Phil Collins was just a teenager trying to make it as an actor and extra in British films. And one of those early roles was supposed to be in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Collins has claimed in interviews that he appeared as one of the children storming Baron Bombast's castle during the climactic final sequence of the film, which is the big action scene where all the hidden Vulgarian children rise up against the tyrannical regime and help rescue the main characters from captivity. However, if you watch the finished movie carefully, looking for a young Phil Collins among the dozens of child extras running through the castle halls, you won't find him anywhere in the final cut because he was completely edited out during post-production. The reason for this unfortunate deletion was purely cosmetic. Collins had a rather large and unsightly bandage wrapped around his head during filming, which was covering a cyst that needed medical attention, and the white bandage was so visible and distracting that it would have pulled audience attention away from the action happening on screen. The film editors decided that having a modern medical bandage appear in a movie set in the early 1900s would break the historical illusion and look out of place. So they carefully went through all the footage and removed every shot that featured Collins and his conspicuous head covering. This means that Collins technically appeared in the production and spent time on set with the cast and crew, but his performance never made it to theaters, making him one of several actors whose cameos ended up on the cutting room floor for various reasons. Fact 7. Benny Hill rewrote the script. At Dick Van Dyke's request, Benny Hill's involvement in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang went far beyond just playing the gentle toymaker character who helps hide the protagonists from the villainous Baron Bombast and his soldiers. Hill was actually brought onto the project specifically to rewrite portions of the screenplay at the direct request of Dick Van Dyke, who felt that certain scenes needed work and wanted someone with a strong comedy background to punch up the dialogue and improve the humor throughout the film. This was an unusual arrangement because the screenplay had already been written by Roald Dahl, the legendary children's author who created Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, along with director Ken Hughes. But Van Dyke had enough clout as the star of the production to request script changes and suggest bringing in additional writers to help. Hill accepted the challenge and worked on revising scenes before eventually being offered the role of the Toymaker, which was quite different from his usual broad comedy performances that British audiences knew him for from his own television variety show. During the production process, Van Dyke and Hill developed a genuine friendship, bonding over their shared love of physical comedy, comic timing, and making people laugh. And they would often discuss comedy techniques and entertainment philosophy between takes on set. Hill's performance as the Toymaker ended up being much more subdued and dramatic than his typical work, showing a gentler and more serious side of his acting abilities that surprised audiences who were used to seeing him in slapstick sketches. The collaboration between Van Dyke and Hill represents one of those interesting moments where creative partnerships form during film production and lead to both script improvements and lasting professional relationships. Fact 8. Bob Monkhouse's cameo ended up on cutting room floor. Bob Monkhouse, one of Britain's most beloved comedians and television personalities, actually filmed a cameo appearance for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang that was supposed to give him a small memorable moment in this major musical production. But audiences never got to see it because his entire scene was completely cut during the editing process. Monkhouse had already established himself as a successful comedian, game show host, and comedy writer by the time Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was being produced in 1967, so having him appear in the film would have been a nice treat for British audiences who knew him well from television. The exact nature of his cameo role remains somewhat mysterious, since nobody involved in the production has provided detailed descriptions of what scene he appeared in or what character he was supposed to play. And the footage itself appears to be lost to history since it was removed before the final cut was assembled. This makes Monkhouse's deleted appearance one of the great what-if moments in the film's production history, leaving fans to wonder what his contribution might have looked like and whether it would have added an extra layer of comedy to an already whimsical movie. What makes this loss particularly unfortunate is that Monkhouse was famous for being an obsessive collector and archivist who owned one of the first video recording machines and spent decades recording and preserving television shows and performances that would have otherwise been lost when networks routinely erased their tapes. Yet even he apparently didn't have a copy of his own deleted Chitty Chitty Bang Bang scene. The deletion of Monkhouse's cameo wasn't unusual for the production, since several other performers and scenes were also trimmed from the final version to bring the film's running time down. Fact 9. Stage musical, car cost $750,000, a world record. When Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was adapted into a stage musical that premiered at the London Palladium in April of 2002, the production needed a car that could perform all the magical transformations live in front of theater audiences every single night, and what they created became the most expensive stage prop in British theater history. The flying car prop built for the West End production cost £750,000, which was approximately $1 million at the time, and it officially holds the Guinness World Record as the priciest theatrical prop ever constructed for a stage show in Britain. This wasn't just some static display piece either. The car had to be a fully functioning theatrical marvel that could sprout wings, transform into a hovercraft, appear to float and fly through the air, using an intricate system of hydraulics and concealed mechanics, and do all of this reliably 8 times a week without breaking down during performances. The technological demands of this mechanical wonder were so extensive that the famous London Palladium had to undergo significant modifications just to accommodate it, including the complete removal of the venue's iconic revolving stage that had been a fixture of the theater for decades and was featured prominently on the television variety show Sunday Night at the London Palladium. The production team needed the extra space beneath the stage floor to install all the machinery, control systems, and storage areas required to make Chitty's transformations work smoothly. So out went the revolving stage to make room for this expensive piece of theatrical magic. The West End production ran for 3.5 years and became the longest-running show ever staged at the London Palladium, taking in over £70 million during its run and proving that the massive investment in the record-breaking car prop was ultimately worth every penny. Fact 10. Michael Jackson tried to buy it but was refused. One of the most famous entertainers in the world once tried to add Chitty Chitty Bang Bang to his collection of unusual and whimsical items, but the car's owner turned him down flat, despite what was likely an extremely generous financial offer. Michael Jackson, the king of pop who is known for filling his Neverland Ranch estate with exotic animals, amusement park rides, and memorable pieces of entertainment history, reportedly expressed serious interest in purchasing one of the original Chitty cars to display at his California property, alongside all his other treasures. The car at that time was owned by Pierre Picton, who had purchased it in the early 1970s and had spent decades driving it around Britain to various charity events, car shows, and public appearances to raise money for good causes and bring joy to children and families who love the film. When Jackson's representatives approached Picton about selling the iconic vehicle, Picton made the decision to refuse the offer because he had a very specific vision for what the car should be used for and where it should remain. Picton firmly believed that Chitty Chitty Bang Bangs should stay in Britain, where the film was made and where it held special cultural significance. And more importantly, he wanted to continue using it for charity work, rather than having it locked away in a private collection where only a select few people would ever get to see it. This principled stance meant that Jackson never got to add the magical car to his Neverland collection, and Picton continued touring with Chitty for charity until 2011, when he finally decided to auction it off, at which point it was purchased by director Peter Jackson for $805,000. And fact 11, the car's body was built by shipbuilders. The distinctive wooden body of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang wasn't constructed by automotive engineers or car designers like you might expect, but instead by actual professional shipbuilders who normally spent their time working on boats and maritime vessels rather than automobiles. The production team made the deliberate choice to bring in craftsmen from Bates Boatyard in Surrey, England, because they needed people who had extensive experience working with wood in curved, flowing shapes that could withstand stress and movement, and shipbuilders possessed exactly those skills from years of constructing boat hulls and decks. Terry Dan, one of the boat builders who worked on the original film car's wooden bodywork back in 1968, later helped recreate replicas of Chitty by providing detailed dimensions and construction techniques to people who wanted to build their own versions of the famous vehicle. This nautical construction approach gave Chitty its very distinctive boat-like appearance with the curved rear section that looks almost exactly like the stern of a wooden boat, complete with the polished wood finish and the sweeping lines that you'd normally see on a classic yacht or sailing vessel, rather than on a car. The shipbuilding connection turned out to be absolutely perfect for the story because one of Chitty's magical abilities in the film is transforming into a hovercraft when the family gets stranded by high tide at the beach, so having a car that was literally built using boat construction techniques made the transformation feel more natural and believable on screen. The wooden boat tail design became one of Chitty's most recognizable features and helped distinguish it from every other movie car ever created, giving it a unique silhouette that combined automotive and maritime elements in a way that perfectly matched the whimsical, fantastical nature of the story. Fact 12. Ballet dancer survived. Death-defying carriage crash. Robert Helpman's decades of training as a professional ballet dancer ended up saving his life during a dangerous accident that occurred while filming one of the child catcher scenes for Chitty Chitty, Bang Bang. The incident happened when Helpman was riding in the child catcher's horse-drawn carriage during a scene where the character drives through the village of Bulgaria searching for hidden children. And as the carriage rounded a corner at speed, something went wrong with either the horses or the wheels, causing the entire vehicle to tip over and start rolling with Helpman still on board. What could have been a serious injury or even a fatal accident for most actors turned into an incredible display of physical grace and athletic ability because Helpman, who was 59 years old at the time of filming, instinctively used his ballet training to react with lightning-fast reflexes and perfect body control. As the carriage tipped and began crashing, Helpman swung himself out of the falling vehicle with the kind of controlled movement that only comes from years of dance training, and then proceeded to skip gracefully across the rolling carriage to safety, using it almost like a moving platform as he made his escape. Dick Van Dyke, who witnessed this incredible feat of agility and quick thinking, later recalled that watching Helpman escape from the tumbling carriage was the most graceful thing he had ever seen in his entire life, which is high praise coming from someone who was himself known as an incredibly talented dancer and physical performer. The fact that Helpman walked away from this accident completely unharmed at nearly 60 years of age speaks to both his remarkable physical conditioning from his ballet career and his ability to stay calm under pressure and trust his body's trained instincts. Fact 13. NASA played the theme song in space. The iconic theme song from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang traveled far beyond movie theaters and living rooms when it was beamed into space to wake up astronauts orbiting high above the Earth. On November 7, 2007, NASA used the cheerful and whimsical Chitty Chitty Bang Bang title song as the official wake-up call for Commander Pamela Ann Melroy and the rest of the Space Shuttle Discovery crew, who were approximately 220 miles above the planet conducting their mission. NASA has a long-standing tradition of playing specially selected songs to wake up astronaut crews during shuttle missions, often choosing music that has personal significance to the crew members or that celebrates particular achievements or milestones during the flight. And someone connected to the Discovery mission clearly had a fondness for this classic musical number from the 1968 film. The choice of this particular song was especially fitting because Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is all about a magical vehicle that can fly through the air and accomplish impossible feats, which creates a perfect parallel to the space shuttle itself, which is essentially a real-life flying machine that does things that would have seemed absolutely impossible when the original movie was released. Hearing that distinctive melody with its upbeat tempo and fantastical lyrics floating through the cabin of the space shuttle while orbiting Earth must have been a surreal and delightful experience for the astronauts as they began their day in the weightless environment of space. This unusual moment of pop culture meeting space exploration shows how certain pieces of entertainment can transcend their original medium and become part of completely unexpected contexts, bringing a touch of childhood wonder and movie magic to one of humanity's most advanced technological achievements. Fact 14. Chris Evans' replica was too long for a garage. One of the most meticulously accurate Chitty Chitty Bang Bang replicas ever constructed ended up changing hands in an embarrassing but somewhat hilarious circumstance when its new owner discovered a rather significant practical problem with their purchase. Gordon Grant, a dedicated fan and skilled craftsman, spent nearly 10 years building an incredibly detailed replica of Chitty from scratch, starting the project in 1998 and not completing it until 2008. And he did it right, by getting help from many of the actual people who had worked on the original film car. Grant received advice and assistance from Peter Lamont, who had been the assistant art director on the 1968 film and later won an Oscar for his work on other major productions, and he obtained the original blueprints and construction notes from Denise Exshaw, the retired set decorator who was the widow of Harry Pottle, the art director who had overseen Chitty's original design. The replica was so accurate that the wheels were cast from molds taken from the original car's wheels, and Grant even tracked down Lionel Whitehead, who had been the chief mechanic at Allen Man Racing when they built the film cars, to get the technical specifications exactly right. After all this painstaking work, Grant's replica was sold at auction in December of 2011 at Bonhams in Weybridge, Surrey, and the winning bidder must have been thrilled to take home such an impressive piece of movie history until they got it back to their property and discovered that the car was simply too long to fit inside their garage. This unfortunate buyer then had to turn around and resell the replica to British broadcaster Chris Evans, who had the space to accommodate Chitty's 17.5-foot length and has since used it extensively at his popular Carfest charity events. Fact 15. Director Ken Hughes hated his own film. It's not often that a director publicly expresses hatred for their own successful film, but Ken Hughes had absolutely no warm feelings toward Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, despite it becoming a beloved family classic that has entertained generations of children and adults around the world. Hughes, who was better known for directing film noir and dramatic thrillers before taking on this big-budget musical, had an absolutely miserable time during production and never changed his opinion about the finished product even after it became profitable and culturally significant. The director clashed repeatedly with star Dick Van Dyke throughout filming, creating tension on set that made the working environment uncomfortable for everyone involved. And Hughes also deeply disliked working with child actors, finding the experience frustrating and difficult in ways that adult performers weren't. When the film was first released, critics gave it mixed reviews, with some praising the spectacle and music, while others found it too long and overly sentimental. And this initial lukewarm critical reception only reinforced Hughes's negative feelings about the project. Despite the fact that Chitty Chitty Bang Bang went on to become the 10th highest-grossing film at the American box office in 1969 and has remained popular for more than 5 decades through television broadcasts and home video releases, Hughes remained bitter about the entire experience. He gave interviews where he openly stated his feelings, telling the press that the film made a lot of money, but that financial success didn't really make him feel any better about it, which is a remarkably honest and somewhat sad admission from someone whose work has brought joy to millions of people who have never stopped loving this whimsical story about a magical flying car, magical flying car, magical flying car, magical flying car.